Hi guys, welcome to Coaching with Wangari Migwi, and today we'll be having a very important discussion about self-esteem and how it affects the lives of young women in the society today, especially low self-esteem. As you can see, today we have a special guest, and I'm going to let her introduce herself, and we are going to go through this topic of low self-esteem together, and she's going to be giving some really important insight as well as her experiences of how she went through the low self-esteem and how she overcame it and how she's doing now.
Hi guys. As Irene introduced me, my name is Florence, and I'm a very close friend of hers. And I was happy to be able to join her today for this conversation because low self-esteem is something that I personally struggled with, so I can completely relate with the whole topic. So to start off, we are going to give a brief description of what self-esteem is. Self-esteem is your opinion of yourself. People with healthy self-esteem like themselves and value their achievements, while everyone lacks confidence occasionally. People with low self-esteem feel unhappy or unsatisfied with themselves most of the time. This can be remedied, but it takes attention and daily practice to boost self-esteem. So I'm going to pass on to Irene to continue.
Okay, so you have had the description of what low self-esteem is, and the first part of our discussion today, we are going to look at some of the main characteristics of low self-esteem. Then we are going to go over the main causes of low self-esteem and how you can start building up your self-esteem if you've been struggling with low self-esteem for a long time. So some of the characteristics of low self-esteem include negative self-talk. This is whereby you are always speaking negative things about yourself. For example, if you make a mistake, you start saying how stupid you are, how foolish you are, how could you make such a silly mistake. That is negative self-talk, and it is one of the main characteristics of low self-esteem. Another main characteristic of low self-esteem is self-loathing, or otherwise known as self-hatred. This is whereby you feel an immense hatred towards yourself, maybe for some of the mistakes that you may have made in your past. For example, an event that happened in your life, you feel that you didn't react to it, or you didn't do the right thing at that very moment, and you have been carrying that guilt with you, and it has turned into hate. You always hate yourself for what you did or what you didn't do during that moment in your life. There are so many other characteristics of low self-esteem. Perhaps, Florence, you can give us a few other characteristics of low self-esteem.
Yeah, so some of the other characteristics of low self-esteem will include downplaying or ignoring your positive qualities. Sometimes we have great qualities, but we feel like they're not good enough, or we tend to ignore them and think the opposite of ourselves. It's very similar to the self-talk that Erin just talked about. And then another characteristic is blaming ourselves when something goes wrong. We don't even put in the factor of other things that may have caused that mistake to happen, like someone else's mistakes or something happening around the world. We just blame ourselves and feel like everything is just us. And then another characteristic is judging ourselves and feeling inferior when we're with our peers. We feel like they are more superior than us and we are not as good as them. So that's also another characteristic of low self-esteem.
Yes. And also to add on that, another characteristic of low self-esteem is inability to receive a compliment. For example, someone genuinely tells you that you look nice, and immediately you react by responding to them that, no, that's not true, it's a lie, you're just kidding. And you don't believe it, you don't believe that you actually look good, because deep down, you don't feel that way about yourself. That's why when other people compliment you, genuine compliments, maybe your hair looks nice, maybe you really look good, you've dressed sharply, or maybe you've just given a very impressive presentation at work, whatever the situation may be, when other people compliment you on what you have or what you've done, you don't believe it immediately. You treat it as though they're just kidding and you don't take it seriously. So that's another thing to look out for in low self-esteem. Yes. So let's move on to some of the main causes of low self-esteem in the society today, and especially how young women are affected by low self-esteem. And one of the main causes of one of the main causes of low self-esteem is social media and how it sets these unrealistic beauty standards. So, Florence, do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, so I feel like nowadays there's this like trend on social media where everyone is trying to portray like a perfect life, but in reality that's not the case. Like everyone, like nobody's going to show their bad side. So most of us might look at them and feel like life is going on well for everyone else and things are not working out for us. So it kind of lowers your self-esteem and it makes you feel like those people have succeeded in life and maybe we're in the same class with them, but here I am still doing the same things. So that's a very main cause, like to many young women, like they just tend to have that low self-esteem that it kind of builds over time. Like you don't realize that the more you keep feeding yourselves these things on social media, the more it continues to affect your self-esteem in general.
Yes, yes, that's very true. And also another way that social media affects low self-esteem is how most of the pictures that we post on social media, they always seem perfect because they are airbrushed, they are filtered, they don't represent how someone really looks in real life. So as you compare yourself to someone, you see as though they seem so perfect, but in reality they don't really look like that. So you're comparing yourself to this fake image of someone that they have created of themselves, and it makes you start feeling bad about yourself. Maybe in the photos you can see how other people have very clear skin on social media, or how they have these amazing maybe body shapes, and if you look at yourself in the mirror, you don't look like what you see on social media. So you start having low self-esteem, you start hating yourself, you start feeling as though you're not pretty or beautiful enough, as though you don't fit in. And this makes you start putting on unrealistic pressures on yourself to look a certain kind of way that does not even exist in real life. Because most of these people, especially celebrities and influencers, they always airbrush their photos, they always use filters to make their photos seem perfect. So as you try to compete with that, you end up having a major effect on your self-esteem.
Yeah, I feel like there are other causes of low self esteem. So that can also come from maybe your childhood. Maybe your parents might have been very critical, or maybe someone who was important in your life, like your teachers, they might have been very critical as you were growing up. And so you ended up having a low self esteem as you grew up, and it kind of affects your life all through your, like, you just have to, like, you have this feeling that you have to please them, so you just try and like do extremely um, like do things in an extreme way that's maybe not really expected of you, but deep down it's just because you're suffering from low self-esteem. And then another thing that I feel might cause low self-esteem is probably ongoing pressures from a relationship or friendship or anything. It's kind of like your partner tends to bring you down, but you don't realize that it's affecting your self-esteem. And so that can also be another cause of low self-esteem. And another thing can be poor academic performance. Maybe you expected to do well in something, but then it doesn't happen as much as you're expecting. And so you feel like maybe your friends are doing well and you're here maybe not succeeding in your exams. So it kind of affects your self-esteem in general.
Yes, very true. And especially therefore that point about academic performance, I feel like there are some teachers who are really mean to
Mm-hmm.
students.
Yeah.
They are very biased towards those students who perform well, and then those students who don't perform well in school. Sometimes you can hear the teacher telling them loudly in class, in front of everyone, how they never make it in life, how they're useless, how they are failures. And this student who is receiving these negative remarks, they really hold on to those negative words, and it later on affects their life, even their performance in life in general, because wherever they go, they'll always hear that negative voice in their head telling them how they are failures, how they're useless, how they never make it in life. So that's also a very important, a very major cause of low self-esteem. And so teachers should be very careful with how they speak to students, because some of the words that they say have a lot of impact on their lives. Another cause of low self-esteem that I would like to add is trauma. So if someone experienced, maybe someone experienced sexual abuse at some point in their life, or even physical abuse or emotional abuse, as you have stated, in abusive or toxic relationships, it really affects them and the way they carry themselves in life, because the events that happen to them, and especially if they don't deal with what happened to them, if they don't heal from those experiences, they're going to be carrying that baggage with them whenever they go in life, and it is going to affect so many other areas of their life in terms of how they interact with others. For example, someone who was maybe sexually abused, they're going to, maybe they won't ever feel very confident when interacting with other people, or they may develop this fear of trusting people, and also people who have been in abusive, emotionally abusive relationships, people who have dated or have been married to narcissists. This really affects them because such people, they always tear you down. They're in a relationship with someone who is toxic, you may have realized how this person is always tearing you down, always diminishing you, always discouraging you, always making you feel as though you can never accomplish anything in life. And in those moments, you may not feel as though their words or their actions have a lot of impact on you. But later on in life, when you try to do something and you encounter some obstacle, that's when you're going to start hearing the negative voices of that person. You're going to start hearing the negative words in your mind, telling you how you're never going to make it, how it's never going to work out. So these are some of the main causes of low self-esteem. In case you're going through low self-esteem without even knowing it, you're going to start being enlightened, and you're going to catch yourself in those moments when you are experiencing those low self-esteem, and hopefully you're going to be able to motivate yourself, and rather than saying negative things about yourself, that negative self-talk that you had mentioned earlier, you're going to start saying positive things about yourself. You're going to start appreciating yourself, as we're going to see in the next topic, where we're going to discuss how to build your self-esteem after you've been struggling with low self-esteem for a very long time.
To add on to what Irene was talking about, I can kind of give my experience. Like, I was in this toxic relationship, and my ex always tried to like say words that affected me, but at that time I didn't know they were affecting my self-esteem, and so with time, I ended up realizing that I wasn't the same person I was when I began this relationship. My self esteem was so low. I didn't even value myself as I did before. And it really made me feel like I'm not worthy of even being loved by anyone. So I just kept staying because I felt like this is the only person who's willing to accept me with my negativity. Because I felt like he kind of made me feel like I was this bad person. And so with time, I ended up realizing that I didn't even value myself anymore. So you never realize when it's happening, but it just kind of builds up with time. And then you end up realizing you're very, like you really don't love yourself. You have low self-esteem. And sometimes if you don't catch it early, it can affect you and it can make you do things that are not good. Maybe you can even choose to commit suicide or even think about it. It can cause mental problems. So it's good to be able to value yourself. And when someone is trying to criticize you or to put you down, just remember of the good things you've done in life and try to use those to be able to like pull yourself up and leave a relationship if you feel like it's being toxic. And another thing I was going to add to was body image. Sometimes we feel like a certain body is what's accepted in the world, and so maybe if you end up maybe adding weight, you feel like you've become too fat, and so people will not embrace you as they did when maybe you were slim or something like that, which was something that I also struggled with. Like when I moved out of Kenya, I ended up eating so many junk food, and I ended up adding so much weight.
Yeah.
And I remember I would call Irene and I would tell her I can't video call you. I feel like I've added so much weight. I don't feel confident. I'm doing a video call. I will have calls with friends, and maybe some of them will be very like blunt and just tell me, "Eh, no, menona." And so it kind of affected my self-esteem, and it made me feel like I'm not good enough. I wouldn't even take pictures or even dress nicely because I didn't feel like I would be acceptable out there. But with time, if you're able to realize the things that are affecting your self-esteem, you can be able to build yourself back up and be able to gain your self-esteem back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for sharing that. And would you tell us how you are able to overcome being in that toxic relationship and how you are able to walk away from it and start building up your self-esteem again?
Um, I feel like for me, just being able to move out of the country kind of contributed to leaving that relationship. And also, Irene was a very critical person in that relationship. She was always telling me, leave, leave, leave. But I never did before, but because she had seen what I was going through. So over time, I felt like I needed to value myself more than anyone else. And the most important thing is for me to love myself. I don't have to seek approval from someone else. So realizing that made me choose to leave that relationship and start to focus on myself and just build myself as a person and be able to be who I used to be before that. So just having that self-talk and telling myself that I'm good enough and I deserve the best made me be able to start building my self-esteem. And I will go online and maybe watch videos on how to grow your self-esteem and also try to focus on my positive qualities because I knew I had them, but I feel like I never focused on them before. But with time I started realizing that I can be able to be good in this and that, so I started focusing on my positive qualities to be able to grow back up and be who I was before. And for my body image, I feel like when I knew I had added weight, I felt like I need to go to the gym and lose weight. But I would join the gym, and after 2 weeks, I'm done because the motivation is not there anymore. Because I'm in my mind, I feel like I need to lose 10 kgs in 2 weeks, and it wasn't happening. And there's no way that's possible. So I decided to just focus on myself and appreciate myself with the body that I'm in at that time. So with time, just that the main thing that helped me be able to overcome all this was me appreciating myself and know that I'm good enough. I know I have my flaws, but accepting the positive things about my life and learning to love myself and value myself and not seek approval from someone else, but just believing in myself and pushing myself each day. There are days when maybe I tend to feel low, which does happen. Everyone has their own days, but just remembering the places where I've come from and how I've been able to overcome through life gave me that strength to be able to continue and to continue building my self-esteem.
Oh, that's beautiful, beautiful. Yes, and as your friend, I'm very proud of you, of how far you've come and how you have been able to overcome all these challenges that life has been bringing away. And now you've made it like to the other side where you can now proudly say that you accept yourself the way you are, you love yourself, and you realize that there are still great things about yourself that you're proud of and you're happy with yourself. And that's what building up your self-esteem is all about.